March 15th, 1943. North Atlantic, 47 degrees north, 23 degrees west. HMS Primrose rolls in 12-foot swells, gray water breaking over the bow, spray freezing into crystalline sheets on the deck rails. Below, in the radio compartment, barely larger than a coffin, radio operator third-class Marcus Webb sits hunched at his Type 129 direction finder, headphones pressed tight against his ears. Outside, the wind howls at 30 knots. Inside, through layers of static and atmospheric interference, Webb hears something else. A transmission. German. Brief, 30 seconds. Gone. His hands move across the calibration dials. Bearing 293 degrees. Signal strength, minus 40 decibels. Distance calculation, 20 miles, maybe 21. His modified horizontal antenna caught it clean and clear. The standard vertical configuration, the one Admiralty regulations require, would have missed it entirely at this range. Would have picked it up 8, maybe 10 minutes later. 8 minutes means 4 nautical miles. 4 miles means the difference between disrupting a wolf pack and sailing straight into torpedoes. Webb marks the bearing on his plotting chart, reaches for the speaking tube to report to the bridge. Then he hears footsteps on the ladder. Heavy, deliberate, officer's boots. Lieutenant Commander Richard Hayes appears in the compartment doorway. His eyes go immediately to the antenna configuration mounted against the bulkhead, to the horizontal brass fittings that should be vertical, to the unauthorized modification that Webb installed 8 days ago and was ordered to remove 4 hours ago. Operator Webb. Hayes' voice is flat, dangerous. My cabin. Now. Webb rises, follows Hayes up the ladder. Behind them, through the porthole, 41 merchant ships are visible on the horizon. Convoy HX-229, 3,000 men. 11 days from Liverpool to Halifax if they survive the crossing. Most of them will not know they are already being hunted. That German submarines are surfacing right now in the darkness ahead. Transmitting coordinates, plotting firing solutions. Webb climbs toward whatever judgment awaits him. The numbers are already set. The mathematics of drowning are already in motion. 4 hours earlier. To understand why Marcus Webb disobeyed a direct order, you must first understand the numbers. The cold, brutal mathematics that defined the North Atlantic in early 1943. Between January and March of that year, Allied convoys lost 22% of their ships on average during each crossing. 1 vessel in 5 never reached port. 1,300 sailors killed every month. 400,000 tons of cargo, food, fuel, ammunition, aircraft, tanks, sent to the ocean floor. The British War Cabinet ran projections in January. At current loss rates, Britain could not sustain the war past December. The mathematics were absolute. The drowning would continue until either the submarines were stopped or Britain starved. The German advantage came from wolfpack tactics, perfected over 3 years of Atlantic warfare. U-boats no longer hunted alone. They operated in coordinated groups called Rudel, packs, of 12 to 20 submarines. The doctrine was elegant and lethal. Scout boats spread across convoy routes. When one made contact, it surfaced and transmitted. The others converged. They surfaced at night, beyond visual range, and sent brief, high-frequency transmissions. Position, convoy bearing, speed, formation. Then they submerged before British escorts could respond. By the time the hunting screen reached the transmission point, the submarines had scattered, repositioned, set their attack geometry. They struck from multiple angles simultaneously. Torpedoes came from ahead, astern, both flanks. Escorts could not defend everywhere at once. The British countermeasure was radio direction finding, RDF, Type 129 sets installed on escort vessels. The theory was sound. Detect the U-boat transmissions, triangulate the source, vector escorts to intercept before the submarines could attack. In practice, the physics defeated the theory. The Type 129 equipment had a maximum effective range of 18 nautical miles under optimal conditions. Optimal meant flat seas, clear atmosphere, no electromagnetic interference. The North Atlantic in winter provided none of these. Actual operational range ran between 11 and 14 miles, usually closer to 11. The timing problem killed convoys. U-boat surfaces, transmits for 30 to 45 seconds. British RDF detects the transmission at 11 miles. If conditions are good, if the operator is sharp, if atmospheric propagation cooperates. The operator calculates bearing, reports to bridge. 2 minutes. The bridge triangulates position with other escorts, plots the contact. 4 minutes. Issues course change to intercept. 1 minute. Total response time, 7 minutes minimum, more often 9 or 10. In 7 minutes, a U-boat traveling at 17 knots on the surface moves 2 miles. In 9 minutes, nearly 3. By the time escorts arrive at the transmission point, the submarine is gone, usually submerged, often already in position for attack. The coordination is complete. The torpedoes are loaded. The firing solutions are set. The escorts arrive too late because they detect too late. They detect too late because 11 miles is not enough range. And 11 miles is not enough range because the equipment operates at the limits of physics in North Atlantic conditions. This is what Marcus Webb understood that others did not. The problem was not the radio set itself. The problem was how the antenna interacted with the atmosphere. Webb came to the Royal Navy by way of the Great Western Railway Telegraph Office in Penzance, Cornwall. His father had worked railway telegraph for 23 years, taught Marcus Morse code when the boy was 8 years old. Dots and dashes tapped out on the kitchen table during dinner. By age 10, Marcus could copy 15 words per minute. By 14, 25. He understood from childhood that communication was not about transmission. It was about clarity through interference. At 16, he took a position at the Civilian Telegraph Office. Spent 6 years sending messages up and down the Cornish coast. Learned that signal propagation was never simple. That weather affected transmission. That antenna height mattered. That orientation mattered. That the same equipment produced different results depending on how you mounted it and where you pointed it. January 1942, age 23, Webb enlisted in the Royal Navy. The telegram business was dying anyway, strangled by telephone trunk lines. The Navy needed radio operators. Webb scored top marks in equipment maintenance training, could strip and rebuild a Type 129 set in 40 minutes in the dark. They posted him to HMS Primrose in June. Primrose was a Flower-class corvette, 205 feet long. Displacement, 1,015 tons. Armed with a single 4-inch deck gun, depth charge racks, and the Type 129 RDF that was supposed to let them find submarines before the submarines found convoys. The ship carried 85 men in space designed for 70. Atlantic escort duty, Liverpool to Halifax and back. 14-day crossings when the weather cooperated. 18 days when it did not. Webb's battle station was the radio compartment. 6 feet wide, 8 feet long, every inch crammed with equipment. His job? Monitor German frequencies, operate the direction finding gear, plot bearings for the bridge. 9 months of convoy duty. 17 crossings. Webb kept unofficial records, noticed patterns. Every U-boat transmission was detected after the submarines had already positioned themselves. Every single contact came 8 to 12 minutes behind the actual transmission time. Signal strength was consistently weaker than physics said it should be at the measured distances. Something was wrong with the reception. Webb studied atmospheric propagation reports from the Admiralty research station. North Atlantic conditions created what the physicists called a refractive layer. Cold air sat on top of relatively warmer seawater. The temperature inversion bent radio waves downward. Vertical antennas, the standard Admiralty configuration since 1938, pushed signals directly into this distortion zone. The waves bent, scattered, lost coherence. Effective range dropped by 30 to 40%. But a horizontal antenna might reduce interaction with the refractive layer, might let signals propagate through clearer atmospheric channels. Webb ran the calculations. If horizontal configuration increased range by 30%, from 14 miles to 18 or 19 miles, response time improved by 7 to 8 minutes. 8 minutes meant U-boats were still transmitting when escorts detected them. Still coordinating, attacks not yet set. 8 minutes meant escorts could disrupt the wolf pack before torpedoes were in the water. 8 minutes meant convoys might survive. Webb needed to test the theory, but testing required modifying the antenna, and modifying the antenna violated Admiralty Technical Order 47-19. Unauthorized alteration of communication equipment. Court-martial offense during wartime. March 7, 1943. Primrose put into Londonderry for minor boiler repairs. 48-hour maintenance window. Most of the crew got shore leave. Pubs and sleep, and 48 hours away from North Atlantic swells. Webb volunteered to remain aboard for equipment inspection. Chief Petty Officer Thomas approved it. The radio compartment needed attention anyway. Once the ship was quiet, Webb began. He removed the vertical antenna mount, standard Admiralty design, unchanged since 1938, machined brass and steel. Set it aside carefully. Then he fabricated horizontal mounting brackets from brass fittings salvaged from a damaged signal lamp. Used a hacksaw from the machine shop, a hand drill, files to smooth the edges. Reoriented the antenna 90 degrees, mounted it at the same height but parallel to the deck instead of perpendicular. Adjusted the grounding connections, recalibrated the tuning circuits. 6 hours of work. Brass filings on the deck, skinned knuckles. The constant awareness that if an officer came down the ladder right now, Webb's naval career would end immediately. He finished at 0200 hours, cleaned up the filings, stowed the vertical mount in a storage locker. The horizontal configuration looked nearly identical to casual inspection. Same antenna, same approximate position, just rotated 90 degrees. Most people would not notice unless they checked carefully. Webb did not log the modification in the maintenance records. March 8th through 14th, routine patrol. Webb tested the modification during normal operations. Reception range increased from 14 miles to 21 miles. Exactly 43% improvement, within 2% of his calculated prediction. He detected U-boat transmissions 8 to 10 minutes earlier than other escorts in the screening force. Reported positions to the bridge without explaining why Primrose consistently achieved first contact. Lieutenant Commander Hayes noticed Primrose's improved detection, assumed it was atmospheric luck, good positioning relative to ionospheric conditions. Webb said nothing. The modification worked. That was all that mattered. Until this morning. March 15th. Equipment Inspection Day, 0800 hours. Hayes conducted the quarterly inspection personally. Standard procedure. Visual check of all communication gear. Webb stood at attention while Hayes examined the Type 129 set. Vacuum tubes, check. Calibration, check. Log entries, check. Everything regulation compliant. Then Hayes looked up at the antenna. Long silence. His hand traced the horizontal mounting, the brass fittings that should not be there. Operator Webb, this antenna is mounted incorrectly. Webb kept his voice steady. Sir, it is functioning within specifications. Admiralty standard is vertical orientation. When was this modified? No point in lying. March 7th, sir. During the Londonderry maintenance period. On whose authority? My own initiative, sir. Hayes closed his eyes. Opened them. You modified communication equipment without authorization. Do you understand that is a court-martial offense? Yes, sir. But the horizontal configuration increases detection range by 43%. I have 8 days of data. I do not care if it increases range by 200%. You violated technical orders. Webb pulled out his handwritten log. 8 days of bearing plots, signal strengths, detection times. Showed Hayes the numbers. 21-mile effective range versus 14-mile standard. 8 to 10 minutes earlier, warning on every contact. Hayes studied the data. The improvement was undeniable. But regulations existed for reasons. Unauthorized modifications could create equipment failures at critical moments. Untested configurations might interfere with other systems. Chain of command required approval for all technical changes. If Hayes allowed this modification to remain, he became complicit in the violation. If word reached Admiralty, Hayes faced discipline for failing to maintain equipment standards aboard his ship. But if he ordered restoration to standard configuration, Primrose lost its detection advantage. Hayes checked his watch. 08:15 hours. Convoy HX229 departed at 1300, 4 hours and 45 minutes. How long to restore standard configuration? 4 hours, sir. Hayes made his decision. Return this antenna to standard vertical configuration. I want it complete before we join the convoy. That is an order. Sir, if I could explain the atmospheric propagation principles? That is an order, operator. Standard configuration. 4 hours. Dismissed. Hayes left the radio compartment. Webb stood alone, looking at the antenna that had worked perfectly for 8 days. Outside the porthole, merchant ships were anchoring in Londonderry Bay. 41 vessels. Tank carriers and ammunition ships and grain freighters. 3,000 men preparing for the crossing. Most of them would never know that their survival might depend on an inverted wire and a disobedient operator. Webb began dismantling the horizontal configuration. Removed the brass brackets he had fabricated. Unbolted the antenna. As he worked, he calculated what restoration meant. Detection range returning to 14 miles. U-boat transmissions detected 8 minutes later. 8 minutes for submarines to complete coordination. 8 minutes. Difference between disrupting a wolf pack and sailing into an ambush. 0900 hours. Webb had removed the horizontal mounting. Chief Petty Officer Thomas appeared in the doorway. Heard Hayes ordered restoration. The modification was working, wasn't it? 43% range increase, but it violated technical orders. Thomas had 22 years of naval service, served on destroyers in the First World War. He understood that regulations existed for good reasons, also understood that wars were won by people who knew when rules should bend. You know what convoy we are escorting today? HX229. Intelligence reports Wolfpack Searäuber waiting in our route. 17 U-boats. Webb stopped working. 17 submarines versus 6 escorts. Thomas continued. Standard detection range. We will pick up their coordination transmissions after they are positioned. By the time we respond, they will be firing. He paused. You have 3 hours before this work needs to be complete. Thomas left. Webb considered his options. Complete the restoration as ordered. Follow regulations. Sail into Searäuber with 14-mile detection range. Mathematical probability, 8 to 12 ships sunk. 1,000 men killed. Or delay the work. Keep the horizontal configuration. Disobey a direct order. certain court-martial if discovered. But 21-mile range might save the convoy. Webb made his decision. He continued working, but slowly now. Made it look thorough. Actually, just consuming time. 1,000 hours. Hayes checked progress. How is the restoration coming? Horizontal mounting removed, sir. Installing vertical bracket now. Some of the original bolt holes stripped during removal. Need to retap threads. Technical language. Sounded legitimate. How much longer? 2 hours, sir. Maybe 2.5. Some corrosion I need to address. Hayes frowned, but nodded. Equipment maintenance could not be rushed. 1,100 hours. Webb had reinstalled the vertical mounting bracket. But he had not connected the antenna to it. The horizontal configuration was still in place, just concealed behind the new bracket. Looked 90% complete. Was actually still fully operational in unauthorized mode. 1,200 hours. Ship's bell. 1 hour to convoy departure. Webb was committed now. No turning back. The antenna stayed horizontal. The modification stayed active. And if Lieutenant Commander Hayes discovered the deception, Marcus Webb would face whatever consequences followed. Outside, 41 ships prepared to sail into the wolf pack, waiting in the darkness ahead. 12:30 hours. March 15, 1943. Convoy HX-229 forms up 3 miles off Londonderry Harbor. 41 merchant ships arrange themselves in 9 columns, 4 to 5 vessels per column. Spacing, 600 yards between columns, 400 yards between ships within each column. Formation dimensions, 3 miles wide, 2 miles deep. A steel rectangle moving west at 8 knots. 6 escorts form the protective screen. 2 destroyers, HMS Vanquisher and HMS Watchman, fast and heavily armed, positioned forward. 4 corvettes, Primrose, Wanderer, Bluebell, and Clematis, smaller and slower, covering the flanks and rear. Destroyer HMS Vanquisher leads the formation. Commander David Thornton, Convoy Commodore, stands on her bridge studying the assembly through binoculars. Weather. Overcast, cloud ceiling at 800 feet, 8-knot wind from the northwest, 10-foot swells. Visibility, 6 miles, decreasing. Sea temperature, 4 degrees Celsius, 39 Fahrenheit. Survival time in water, 10 to 15 minutes before hypothermia causes incapacitation, 20 minutes before death. These numbers matter. Every man in the convoy knows them. 1,300 hours, exactly. Signal flags run up Vanquisher's halyards. Course, 285 degrees, west-southwest. Speed, 8 knots, limited by the slowest merchant ships in formation. Destination, Halifax, Nova Scotia. Distance, 2,100 nautical miles. Estimated crossing time, 11 days if weather holds, 14 if it does not. Threat assessment from Admiralty Intelligence, transmitted at 1,100 hours. Wolfpack Searäuber operating between 20 and 30 degrees west longitude. Estimated strength, 17 submarines. Tactical assessment. Coordinated night surface attacks. Estimated contact window, March 17th or 18th, 48 to 72 hours from now. The merchant ships weigh anchor. 41 vessels carrying fuel oil, aviation gasoline, grain, steel, ammunition, aircraft parts, tank components. The logistics that keep Britain fighting. Slowly, the formation begins moving. The mathematics are simple. 8 knots equals 9.2 miles per hour, equals 220.8 miles per day. 11 days if nothing goes wrong. Longer if storms develop. Much longer if Searäuber finds them. HMS Primrose takes her assigned position. Starboard rear quarter, 2,000 yards off the formation's southeast corner. From here, Webb's radio direction finder can cover the entire starboard arc. Can detect threats coming from the south or east. can provide early warning if submarines approach from those quadrants, if the equipment works properly, if the unauthorized modification does not fail, if Lieutenant Commander Hayes does not inspect the antenna again. Webb sits in the radio compartment, headphones on, monitoring 465 kilohertz. Standard German U-boat communication frequency. For now, only static. The low hiss of atmospheric noise, the occasional crack of distant lightning. Nothing human, nothing hostile, not yet. Above him, footsteps on the ladder. Webb recognizes the rhythm. Officer's boots. Hayes coming down from the bridge. Webb's pulse accelerates. The antenna configuration is still horizontal, still unauthorized, hidden behind the partially installed vertical bracket. If Hayes inspects closely, the deception will be obvious immediately. Webb will face immediate arrest, confinement until they reach Halifax, court-martial within a week. Hayes enters the compartment. Restoration complete? Webb stands, comes to attention. Yes, sir. Standard vertical configuration restored. The lie feels like broken glass in his throat. The vertical bracket is installed, but the antenna is still horizontal behind it, still operating in the unauthorized mode that increases range by 43%, still giving Primrose an advantage that regulations forbid. Hayes glances at the antenna assembly. From this angle, it looks correct. Bracket in place, mounting secured, grounding connections properly attached. You would need to look behind the bracket, trace the actual antenna orientation to see the deception. Any issues during testing? None, sir. Reception within normal parameters. Another lie. Reception is still at 21 miles, 7 miles above normal. But Webb tested it carefully this morning, made sure the signal strength readings would not obviously indicate extended range unless someone compared them directly to other escorts. Hayes nods. Good work. Maintain continuous watch on German frequencies. Intelligence expects Seeräuber contact in 48 hours. I want immediate notification of any transmission. Understood, sir. Hayes turns to leave, pauses at the ladder. Webb, you understand why regulations exist, why unauthorized modifications are prohibited. Yes, sir. Equipment failures at critical moments cost lives. Untested configurations can interfere with other systems, can create cascading failures we cannot predict. Hayes looks directly at Webb. Following procedures keeps ships operational, keeps men alive. I understand, sir. Good. Hayes climbs the ladder, boots ringing on steel rungs. Gone. Webb exhales slowly, sits back down at the radio set. The deception holds. But now he is committed to maintaining the lie for 48 to 72 hours. Until Seeräuber makes contact. Until the horizontal antenna either proves its worth or exposes him as a fool who violated orders for nothing. He adjusts the headphones, returns to monitoring German frequencies. Outside, through the porthole, the last buildings of Londonderry disappear behind gray swells. Ahead, 2,000 miles of North Atlantic. Somewhere in that emptiness, 17 submarines are waiting. Webb has bet his career that 8 minutes of advance warning will make the difference between survival and drowning. March 16th, 2200 hours. 33 hours into the crossing. Position, 51 degrees north, 18 degrees west. 420 nautical miles west of Ireland. The convoy has covered good distance. 8 knots sustained, formation holding tight, no stragglers. Weather cooperating, overcast but calm. Swells down to 8 feet, wind dropping to 6 knots. Night has fallen. Overcast blocks the stars. No moon. Visibility near zero. The convoy runs under strict blackout conditions. No navigation lights, no illumination. Radio silence except for emergency transmissions. 47 ships moving through absolute darkness. maintaining formation by dead reckoning and faith. Webb sits in the radio compartment, headphones pressed tight against his ears. Has been monitoring 465 kilohertz for 3 hours straight. Chief Petty Officer Thomas brought him tea an hour ago, already cold. Webb drinks it anyway. Needs the caffeine, needs to stay sharp. For 3 hours, nothing. Only static and the occasional atmospheric pop. The ocean is quiet. Too quiet. Intelligence said Searäuber would be in this area. Should be positioned by now. Should be transmitting coordination data. But the frequency remains silent. Maybe intelligence was wrong. Maybe the wolf pack is farther west. Maybe they are hunting a different convoy. Maybe HX-229 will cross without contact. Will reach Halifax with all 41 ships intact. Will make Webb's unauthorized modification irrelevant because there will be no crisis to justify it. 22:13 hours. A transmission breaks through the static. German, clear. 38 seconds. Call sign identified, U753. Message content, position report, convoy bearing, distance estimate. The transmission is strong, almost no interference. Webb's hands move across the direction-finding dials. Bearing, 292 degrees. Signal strength, -38 decibels. Distance calculation, 21 miles, maybe 22. Webb marks the chronometer time, 22:13 and 25 seconds. Marks the bearing on his plotting chart. Reaches for the speaking tube to the bridge. Bridge, radio room. U-boat transmission detected. Hayes's voice comes back immediately. Report. German transmission, bearing 292 degrees, estimated 20 to 21 miles. Call sign U753. Transmission duration 38 seconds. Message content consistent with position reporting protocol. Acknowledged. Stand by. Webb hears Hayes on the bridge radio, contacting Vanquisher. HX-229, this is Primrose. U-boat transmission detected. Bearing 292 degrees, range approximately 20 miles. Commander Thornton's voice crackles back. Primrose, Vanquisher, acknowledged. Request confirmation from other escorts. Standard procedure. Multiple detection points allow triangulation. Give more accurate position fixes. Webb waits, watching the chronometer. Other escorts should be reporting contact within minutes. Their Type 129 sets have the same basic capability. Should detect the same transmission. Minutes pass. 3, 4, 5, 22, 18 hours. HMS Wanderer reports. Vanquisher, Wanderer. Confirm U-boat transmission. Bearing 295 degrees, estimated 14 miles. Webb checks the timing. Wanderer detected. Transmission 5 minutes after Primrose. U753 transmitted at approximately 22:13. Primrose detected it within seconds. Wanderer detected it at 22:18. 5-minute lag. Webb calculates rapidly. If U753 was 21 miles from Primrose when transmitting, and 14 miles from Wanderer 5 minutes later, the submarine has moved 7 miles in 5 minutes. That would require 84 knots. Impossible. U-boat's maximum surface speed is 17 knots. The only explanation, Wanderer detected the transmission late. Detected it when U753 was 14 miles away. But by then, 5 minutes had already passed since the actual transmission. Wanderer's standard vertical antenna configuration only picked up the signal at 14-mile range. Primrose's horizontal configuration detected it at 21 miles. 7-mile detection range advantage, exactly as Webb calculated. On Vanquisher's bridge, Commander Thornton notices the timing discrepancy. His voice comes over the radio. Primrose, Vanquisher, confirm your detection time for the last transmission. Hayes responds, 22:13 and 25 seconds. Long pause. Thornton is calculating the same numbers Webb just calculated. Primrose, Your detection time is 5 minutes earlier than Wanderer. Confirm equipment is operating within specifications. Hayes hesitates. Webb can hear it over the speaking tube. Equipment is operating within specifications, just not standard Admiralty specifications. The horizontal antenna is functioning exactly as designed. The problem is that the design is unauthorized. Hayes makes his choice. Confirmed, Vanquisher. Type 129 functioning normally. Technically true. The set is functioning normally. The fact that it is connected to a modified antenna is not mentioned. Hayes is protecting Webb, or protecting himself, or both. But the lie is now on record. If the deception is discovered, Hayes shares culpability. Thornton accepts this, but files it mentally. Something is giving Primrose extended detection range. He will investigate later. More important now, U-753's transmission means Searäuber is positioning for attack. Thornton's voice on the radio, addressed to all escorts. HX229, this is Vanquisher. Alter course to 305 degrees. Reduce speed to 7 knots. Execute immediately. 20-degree course change to the north. Speed reduction to Titan formation. Defensive maneuvering. The course change forces U-boats to recalculate interception geometry. And because Primrose detected the transmission 5 minutes early, 7 miles farther out, U-753 has not yet completed coordination with the rest of Searäuber. The Wolfpack is still repositioning. 7 miles might be enough to slip past their initial setup. Webb watches the chronometer, listens to static. 10 minutes pass. 15. Then, at 22:40 hours, another transmission. U-618. Bearing 277 degrees, 19 miles. Message content, acknowledgement of course change, updated attack timing. They are tracking the convoy, adjusting their positions. But again, Primrose has earliest contact, this time by 7 minutes compared to Bluebell's detection. The pattern is unmistakable now. Primrose consistently detecting transmissions well outside standard range. Hayes descends to the radio compartment. Webb knows what is coming. Operator Webb? Hayes' voice is controlled. Dangerous. Your detection range is exceeding other escorts by significant margins. Atmospheric conditions may be favorable for our position, sir, or your antenna is not in standard configuration. Silence in the radio compartment. Only the hum of vacuum tubes. The hiss of static through the headphones. Webb's hands rest on the direction-finding controls. He could confess now. Admit the deception, face arrest, or he could maintain the lie and hope Hayes does not inspect the antenna again during the middle of submarine contact. Before Webb can respond, another transmission cuts through the static. U-447. Bearing 304 degrees. Strong signal. 22 miles, maybe 23. Message content includes attack timing coordination. This one is close, very close to the convoy's new course. Webb reports immediately. U-boat transmission bearing 304 degrees, estimated 22 to 23 miles. Signal strength indicates approaching intercept course. Hayes has to choose. Confront Webb about the unauthorized configuration now, in the middle of Wolfpack contact, or deal with it later. Tactical situation takes precedence, always. Report to bridge immediately with full bearing plot. Webb grabs his chart, follows Hayes up the ladder. Primrose's bridge is dark except for red night vision lights. Lieutenant Commander Hayes and the navigator huddle over the chart table. Webb lays out his bearing plot. 3 U-boat positions forming a rough triangle around the convoy. The navigator plots positions on the main chart. Studies the geometry. They are attempting to box us in. Classic Searäuber tactic. But they are still repositioning. They were not expecting our course change. Hayes studies the plot. Primrose detected their coordination transmissions before they completed positioning. If we alter course again now, we can slip between U618 and U447 before they close the gap. The navigator calculates. Based on standard 8-knot convoy speed and estimated U-boat approach rates, gap closes in approximately 40 minutes. But Primrose detected them 7 minutes early. 7 minutes means the gap is still 3 nautical miles wider than it would have been with standard detection. Hayes makes his recommendation to Vanquisher. This is Primrose. Recommend immediate course change to 265 degrees. We have a window to slip their formation. Thornton trusts Hayes's judgment. Has served with him for 18 months. Knows Hayes is cautious, analytical, not prone to reckless maneuvering. If Hayes says there is a window, there is a window. 2300 hours exactly. Signal flags on Vanquisher. Convoy alters course to 265 degrees, almost due west. 41 merchant ships turn in the darkness, maintaining formation discipline. 6 escorts adjust positions to maintain protective screen. The maneuver is based entirely on Primrose's extended detection range. On the 7-mile advantage that exists only because Marcus Webb disobeyed direct orders 8 days ago. If the maneuver fails, if U-boats adapt quickly and attack successfully, both Hayes and Webb face severe consequences. If it works, questions will be asked about Primrose's detection capability. Either way, the modification will be discovered eventually. But right now, 3,000 men's survival depends on those 7 miles. On the 43% range increase from a horizontal wire. On a decision Webb made in an empty radio compartment in Londonderry, while his shipmates drank in pubs. Webb returns to the radio compartment, puts the headphones back on, monitors 465 kilohertz, waits to see if 17 submarines can adapt fast enough to catch 41 ships that just altered course, based on intelligence the Germans do not know the British have. The static hisses. The ocean breathes. Somewhere in the darkness, torpedoes wait in tubes. And Marcus Webb sits alone with the knowledge that his career, his freedom, and 3,000 lives all depend on an inverted antenna that should not exist. March 17th, 0100 hours. 2 hours after the convoy course change. Position, 51 degrees north, 19 degrees west. Webb has remained at his station continuously for 3 hours. Chief Petty Officer Thomas brought him more tea at midnight. Also a sandwich. Cold beef and bread from the galley. Webb ate without tasting it. Keeps his attention locked on the headphones, on the static, on the silence that might mean safety or might mean the wolf pack is repositioning without transmitting. For 90 minutes, nothing. No German transmissions. The frequency stays empty except for atmospheric noise. The silence is either very good or very bad. Good if Seeräuber lost the convoy, if the course change broke contact, if 17 submarines are searching empty ocean while 41 ships slip past. Bad if the U-boats are maintaining radio silence while they move into attack positions. If they are close enough now that they do not need coordination transmissions. If they are already submerged and approaching firing solutions. Webb checks the chronometer. 0100 hours. His eyes burn from staring at calibration dials in red light. His ears ache from 3 hours of headphone pressure. But he does not move, does not look away. 3,000 men depend on him hearing what comes next. 0120 hours. Multiple transmissions simultaneously. 4 distinct call signs transmitting within seconds of each other. U753, U618, U447, U391, all broadcasting position updates, convoy bearing adjustments, attack timing coordination. The transmissions overlap, creating interference patterns. Webb has to separate manually. His hands move across the dials, isolating each signal, calculating bearings. U-753. Bearing 285 degrees, 19 miles. U-618. Bearing 308 degrees, 21 miles. U-447. Bearing 315 degrees, 18 miles. U-391. Bearing 292 degrees, 20 miles. Webb plots all 4 bearings on his chart. The positions form a rough arc behind and to the south of the convoy. The U-boats are repositioning to intercept the westward course, but they are still 8 to 10 miles behind optimal attack positions. The earlier course change forced them to chase the convoy, instead of setting up ahead and waiting. They are pursuing instead of ambushing. Webb reports to bridge immediately. Multiple U-boat transmissions, 4 confirmed contacts, bearings 285 through 315 degrees, estimated ranges 15 to 21 miles. All transmissions indicate repositioning to intercept current convoy course. Hayes takes the report, immediately contacts Vanquisher. Thornton receives the bearing plot, studies the geometry, makes his tactical decision within 30 seconds. Rather than wait for U-boats to complete repositioning and attack at their leisure, Vanquisher will take the fight to them. Aggressive counterattack. Disrupt their coordination before they can set proper attack geometry. Thornton's orders crackle over the radio. Vanquisher and Watchman, break formation. Proceed on bearing 295 degrees at maximum speed. All corvettes maintain defensive screen around convoy. The 2 destroyers are faster than corvettes. 26 knots versus 16. Carry ASDIC sonar equipment. Carry heavier depth charge loads. Their job: sprint toward the U-boat positions, force the submarines to submerge defensively, break their coordination before attacks can develop. 01:45 hours. Vanquisher and Watchman detach from convoy formation. Their engines throttle up, white wakes visible even in darkness as they accelerate eastward. Toward the U-boats, toward contact. 4 corvettes, Primrose, Wanderer, Bluebell, Clematis. Close ranks around the 41 merchant ships. Tighten the protective screen. If any U-boats slip past the destroyers, the corvettes are the last line of defense. Webb continues monitoring. 01:50 hours, 0200, 0210. No new transmissions. The U-boats have gone silent. Either they detected the destroyers approaching, or they completed coordination and are now submerging for attack approach. 02:15 hours. Vanquisher's radio operator reports. All stations, Vanquisher. ASDIC contact. Bearing 288 degrees. Range 3,000 yards. Depth 60 feet. Classified submarine. Engaging. ASDIC is active sonar. Sends acoustic pulses through water. Listens for reflections off solid objects. Effective range: 2,000 to 4,000 yards, depending on water conditions. Vanquisher has found one of the U-boats, submerged, trying to hide. But ASDIC sees through darkness and water both. Vanquisher conducts depth charge attack. 10 charges set for 50 and 100 feet. Released from stern racks in pattern designed to bracket the submarine's position. The charges sink at 10 feet per second. At 50 feet, pressure triggers detonate them. Approximately $500 pounds of explosives per charge. 5,000 pounds total. Even from 20 miles away, Webb feels the vibration through Primrose's hull. Low-frequency rumble transmitted through water, like distant thunder, like the ocean breaking. 02:20 hours. Vanquisher reports. ASDIC contact lost, debris surfacing, oil slick visible, assessing kill. 2 minutes later, contact confirmed destroyed. Debris includes wood fragments, diesel oil, compressed air bubbles. Classify as U-boat kill. U-618 is gone. 1 submarine down, 16 remaining. But the depth charge attack alerts the other U-boats. They know British escorts are aggressively hunting. Know their coordination is disrupted. Standard German doctrine in this situation. Break off attack, regroup at safe distance, find softer target. 0230 hours. Webb detects another transmission. U447. Bearing 305 degrees, 16 miles. Message content includes emergency recall code. Standard Seeräuber disengagement signal. The wolf pack is breaking off. Webb reports to Hayes. Hayes relays to Thornton. The aggressive counterattack worked. Vanquisher's destruction of U-618 and the early detection advantage that allowed the destroyers to engage before the wolf pack completed positioning. Both factors combined to convince the German commander that this convoy is too well defended, that easier targets exist elsewhere. 0300 hours. No German transmissions for 30 minutes. The frequency returns to static and atmospheric noise. Seeräuber has disengaged. 0600 hours. Dawn breaks. Gray light filters through clouds. Vanquisher and Watchman rejoin convoy formation. All 41 merchant ships still in position. All escorts accounted for. 0 casualties. 0 ships lost. First time in 3 months that a North Atlantic convoy has encountered a wolf pack and escaped without losses. 0800 hours, warning watch change. Webb finally leaves his station, has been monitoring continuously for 10 hours. His legs barely support him when he stands. Chief Petty Officer Thomas takes over the radio watch. Webb climbs to the main deck for air. Cold wind. Spray. The convoy stretches across the gray ocean. 41 ships that should have been 40 or 39 or 33. That should have left burning oil slicks and floating debris and men screaming in 4-degree water. Instead, they steam westward in perfect formation. Commander Thornton sends message to all escorts. Well-executed defensive action. Special recognition to Primrose for detection advantage that enabled tactical response. Request all vessels submit equipment performance reports for Admiralty review. Hayes receives the commendation on Primrose's bridge. Also receives private message from Thornton. Primrose detection range significantly exceeded other escorts throughout engagement. Request detailed technical explanation. Admiralty will require documentation. Hayes knows the explanation. Unauthorized antenna modification. Modification that saved 41 ships and 3,000 lives. Also modification that violated direct orders and technical regulations. He descends to the radio compartment where Thomas is monitoring. Where is Operator Webb? Main deck, sir. Getting air after 10-hour watch. Hayes finds Webb standing at the rail, staring at the convoy. Wind whips his jacket. Spray coats his face. Operator Webb, my cabin, now. Webb follows Hayes below. Knows what is coming. Has known since 0120 when the multiple U-boat contacts proved the horizontal antenna's value beyond question. Saved the convoy. Also exposed the deception. Hayes's cabin. 8 feet by 6 feet. Single bunk, small desk, porthole showing gray dawn. Hayes closes the door, stands facing Webb. The antenna is still in horizontal configuration, is it not? No point in lying anymore. Yes, sir. I gave you a direct order to restore standard configuration. Yes, sir, you did. And you deliberately disobeyed that order. Yes, sir. Long silence. Hayes sits at his desk, studies Webb's service record. 9 months Atlantic duty. Exemplary performance ratings. No previous disciplinary issues. Now this. Explain your thinking, operator. Complete truth. Webb explains. The atmospheric propagation calculations, the 43% range increase, the 8 minutes of advance warning, intelligence report of 17 U-boats, mathematical calculation that standard detection range would result in 8 to 12 ships lost. Decision that potential to save 600 to 1,000 lives outweighed obligation to follow orders. Hayes listens without interruption. When Webb finishes, Hayes asks. What if your modification had failed at a critical moment? What if unauthorized configuration caused equipment malfunction during the attack? I tested it for 8 days before convoy departure, sir. The configuration is technically sound. Risk of failure was minimal compared to certainty of casualties with standard range. That is not your decision to make. You are a radio operator, not a tactical commander. With respect, sir, technical decisions about radio equipment are exactly my domain. I made a technical calculation that increased operational effectiveness. Hayes feels the impossible position. Webb clearly violated orders. Webb's violation directly resulted in saving the convoy. If Hayes reports this, Webb faces court-martial. If Admiralty investigates, Hayes faces discipline for failing to properly inspect equipment. But if Hayes covers it up, he becomes complicit. Commander Thornton has requested technical report explaining Primrose's detection range. What do I tell him? Webb meets Hayes's eyes directly. Tell him the truth, sir. That unauthorized modification of antenna configuration increased effective range by 43%. That the modification enabled early detection of wolfpack coordination. That early detection allowed course changes and aggressive counterattack that prevented merchant ship losses. And accept court-martial? I accept the consequences of my actions, sir. I made a choice. The choice saved lives. I will stand by it. Long silence in the cabin. Only the sound of water against hull, of engines below, of 41 ships steaming west toward Halifax. Hayes makes his decision. Hayes pulls 2 blank report forms from his desk drawer. Standard Admiralty documentation, one for technical equipment assessment, one for disciplinary action. He uncaps his fountain pen, begins writing. Sit down, Webb. Webb sits on the single chair bolted to the bulkhead, watches Hayes write in precise, measured script. The cabin is silent, except for the scratch of pen on paper, and the endless rhythm of the ship working through swells. Hayes writes for 15 minutes, 2 complete reports, does not show them to Webb. When finished, he blots the ink carefully, folds both documents, places them in separate envelopes, seals them, addresses one to Commander Thornton aboard Vanquisher, the other to Admiralty Disciplinary Board, Portsmouth. You understand what these contain? Yes, sir. First report provides complete technical explanation of the horizontal antenna configuration. Detection range improvement. Operational effectiveness during engagement with Sea Räuber. My assessment that the modification directly enabled tactical decisions that prevented convoy losses. Hayes taps the second envelope. Second report documents your unauthorized equipment modification in violation of Admiralty Technical Order 47-19. Documents my direct order to restore standard configuration. Documents your deliberate disobedience of that order. Recommends court-martial proceedings upon arrival, Halifax. Webb nods. Expected nothing less. Hayes studies Webb's face. 24 years old. Looks exhausted. 10-hour radio watch. 33 hours of tension waiting for wolfpack contact. And before that, 8 days of operating with unauthorized equipment, knowing discovery meant arrest. I am also including my own statement, Hayes says quietly, that I failed to conduct adequate inspection after ordering restoration, that I allowed the modification to remain operational through negligence or oversight. That command responsibility for this violation is partially mine. Webb straightens. Sir, that is not necessary. It is accurate. I ordered restoration. I should have verified completion before convoy departure. I did not. That failure is documented in my report. Hayes pauses. We will face this together, Operator Webb. March 18th, 1400 hours. Convoy HX229 continues westward. Position, 52 degrees north, 25 degrees west. 900 nautical miles from Londonderry. 1,200 miles to Halifax. Weather holding, overcast, moderate seas. Visibility good. No further U-boat contacts. Searoiber has moved to hunt easier prey. Hayes transfers both sealed reports to Vanquisher via signal lamp. Thornton receives them in his cabin. Opens the technical report first. Reads Hayes's detailed explanation of horizontal antenna configuration. The atmospheric propagation theory. The 43% detection range increase. The operational timeline showing Primrose consistently detected U-boat transmissions 7 to 8 minutes before other escorts. Thornton is career Royal Navy, 26 years service, commanded destroyers since 1939. He understands tactical advantage, also understands regulations exist for reasons. Unauthorized modifications undermine equipment reliability, chain of command, operational consistency across the fleet. But the results are undeniable. 1 convoy, 41 ships, 0 losses, first time in 3 months. Thornton opens the disciplinary report, reads Hayes's documentation of Webb's disobedience, also reads Hayes's acceptance of partial responsibility for inadequate inspection, respects Hayes for that. Many officers would have thrown Webb to the court-martial and protected themselves. Hayes chose honesty. Thornton writes his own assessment, attaches it to both reports. His recommendation? Immediate technical evaluation of horizontal antenna configuration by Admiralty Research Station. If modification proves consistently effective, consider fleet-wide adoption. Regarding disciplinary action, recommend consideration of operational results and life-saving impact when determining appropriate sentence. He seals all documents in priority dispatch envelope. Will be transmitted to Admiralty via naval wireless when Convoy reaches communications range of Newfoundland. Another 4 days. April 2nd, 1943. Convoy HX-229 enters Halifax Harbor. 11 days from Londonderry. All 41 merchant ships arrive intact. 3,000 men disembark safely. They do not know how close they came to drowning in the North Atlantic. Do not know that a radio operator violated orders to save them. Do not know about the inverted wire. Webb walks down Primrose's gangway onto Halifax Pier. Shore patrol is waiting. 2 Royal Navy Masters-at-Arms with sidearms. They are polite but firm. Radio operator 3rd Class Marcus Webb? Yes. You are ordered to report to Naval Provost Marshal, Halifax Station. Please come with us. Webb is not arrested, not confined, but he is officially under investigation, surrenders his identification papers, surrenders his shore leave authorization, is assigned to temporary quarters in transit barracks under movement restriction, cannot leave base, cannot communicate with Primrose crew, awaits transport to Portsmouth for court-martial proceedings. Hayes is similarly restricted. Returns his command temporarily to Primrose's executive officer, reports to Naval Investigation Office for formal statement. The process is thorough and slow. Navy bureaucracy grinding forward with procedural inevitability. April 10th, 1943. While Webb and Hayes wait in Halifax, the technical report reaches Admiralty Research Station at Portsmouth. A team of radio engineers receives the documents. They are skeptical. Antenna orientation should not produce 43% range improvement. Theory suggests modest gains at best. 10, maybe 15%. Not 43? They decide to test it anyway. 3 Type 129 radio direction finding sets. 3 corvettes in Portsmouth Harbor. Test protocol. Install horizontal configuration on 1 vessel. Standard vertical on the other 2. Conduct controlled transmission tests from submarine HMS Thrasher at measured distances. Record detection ranges under identical atmospheric conditions. Test 1. Thrasher transmits from 15 miles. Vertical antennas detect signal at -42 decibels. Horizontal antenna detects at -39 decibels. 3 decibel improvement equals approximately 2 miles additional range. Test 2. Thrasher transmits from 20 miles. Vertical antennas detect signal at -48 decibels, barely above noise floor. Horizontal antenna detects at -43 decibels, clear and distinct. 5 decibel improvement equals approximately 4 miles additional range. Test 3. Thrasher transmits from 25 miles. Vertical antennas fail to detect signal, below noise threshold. Horizontal antenna detects at -50 decibels, weak but identifiable. Detection versus non-detection. Infinite percentage improvement. The engineers run 36 tests over 4 days. Variable atmospheric conditions, different times of day, different sea states. Results are consistent. Horizontal configuration provides 38 to 43% detection range improvement, depending on conditions. Exactly as Webb calculated. Additional testing reveals no reduction in omnidirectional coverage, no interference with other radio systems, no increased equipment failure rates. The modification is technically sound. April 15th. Admiralty issues Technical Directive 173. Authorizes horizontal antenna mounting as approved alternative configuration for Type 129 radio direction finding equipment. Permits commanding officers to select configuration based on operational requirements. Recommends horizontal mounting for Atlantic escort duty, where maximum detection range is priority. Webb's unauthorized modification becomes official Admiralty doctrine. April 20th, 1943. Court-martial hearing. Naval Court Building, Portsmouth. 3 presiding officers. Captain James Rothwell, President of the Court. 2 lieutenant commanders serving as members. Prosecutor from Judge Advocate General's office. Webb has been assigned defense counsel. Lieutenant Morris, young and earnest and slightly overwhelmed. Charges read into record. Unauthorized modification of communication equipment in violation of Admiralty Technical Order 47-19. Disobedience of direct order from superior officer during wartime operations. Evidence presented. Hayes's reports. Technical board findings. Convoy HX229 after-action reports. Webb's handwritten detection logs from March 8th through 17th. Testimony from Commander Thornton regarding tactical decisions enabled by extended detection range. Prosecutor's argument. Regardless of operational results, unauthorized modifications during wartime undermine chain of command, equipment reliability, and fleet operational standards. Webb had no authority to alter equipment configuration, no authority to disobey direct order to restore standard configuration. His actions, however well-intentioned, violated regulations designed to maintain naval effectiveness and discipline. Defense argues, Webb's technical expertise identified legitimate improvement to equipment performance. Modification proved tactically sound, was subsequently validated by Admiralty testing and adopted as official procedure. Results include 0 convoy losses, prevention of estimated 8 to 12 merchant ship sinkings, saving of approximately 600 to 1,000 lives. Actions demonstrated exceptional technical initiative rather than malicious disobedience. Hayes testifies, Operator Webb violated regulations. I do not dispute that. He also saved 41 ships and 3,000 men. I accepted partial responsibility for inadequate inspection because command accountability is mine. But Webb's technical judgment was correct. His calculations were accurate. His modification worked exactly as he predicted. Court recesses for 2 hours. 3 officers deliberate in closed session. When they return, Captain Rothwell reads the verdict. This court finds radio operator 3rd Class Marcus Webb guilty of unauthorized equipment modification, guilty of disobedience of direct order. The charges are sustained by evidence. Webb stands at attention. feels the weight of the verdict. Guilty. The word carries consequences. Dishonorable discharge. Prison time possibly. End of naval career, certainly. Rothwell continues. However, this court also recognizes extraordinary circumstances. Operator Webb's modification demonstrated exceptional technical competence. Operational results directly prevented significant convoy losses and casualties. Modification has been validated by Admiralty Technical Board and adopted as authorized procedure. While we cannot condone violation of regulations, we acknowledge that Webb's actions ultimately served naval effectiveness and saved lives. Rothwell pauses, looks directly at Webb. Sentence: official reprimand. Reduction in rate from radio operator 3rd class to radio operator seaman, both to be entered in service record. No confinement, no discharge. Operator Webb will return to active duty. Webb feels something release in his chest. Guilty but not destroyed. Punished but not finished. He can remain in the Navy, can continue serving. Rothwell adds, notation will also be entered in service record. Operator Webb demonstrated exceptional technical initiative, resulting in significant operational advantage and confirmed life-saving results. Modification subsequently adopted as standard Admiralty procedure. This commendation will remain permanently in his file. Court adjourns. Webb is dismissed. Outside the building, Hayes is waiting. Well, guilty. Reduced to seaman. Reprimand. No discharge. Hayes nods. Could have been worse. Could have been much worse. Yes, sir. They stand in Portsmouth sunlight. Watch harbor traffic. Destroyers and corvettes and merchant ships, the machinery of Atlantic convoy operations continuing endlessly. What happens now? Webb asks. You are reassigned. HMS Starling, Captain Johnny Walker's 2nd Escort Group. Webb recognizes the name. Walker is legendary. Most successful U-boat hunter in the Royal Navy. His escort group operates as dedicated submarine hunting force rather than passive convoy defense. Aggressive tactics, high kill rates. Walker specifically requested you, Hayes says. Read the court-martial transcripts, wants a radio operator who understands that innovation matters more than procedure. Someone who will make technical decisions based on effectiveness rather than regulations. When do I report? May 1st, 11 days. Hayes extends his hand. Webb shakes it. It was the right decision, Webb. The modification, the disobedience, all of it. You saved 3,000 men. We saved them, sir. You filed honest reports, accepted responsibility. That mattered. Hayes releases Webb's hand. There is a difference between following orders and doing what is right. Sometimes they align, sometimes they do not. You understood that distinction. Not many do. Hayes walks away toward the harbor where Primrose is docked, preparing for another convoy crossing. Another 14 days in the North Atlantic, Webb remained standing in the Portsmouth sunlight, thinking about horizontal wires and atmospheric propagation, and 8 minutes that changed everything. Epilogue, August 1943, 5 months later. 60% of Atlantic escort vessels have adopted horizontal antenna. Configuration, standard Admiralty procedure now. Average detection range increases from 13 miles to 19 miles across the fleet. U-boat Wolfpack effectiveness drops by 42%. Monthly convoy losses decrease from 22% to 8%. German Naval Command notices the change. Notes in patrol reports that British escorts are detecting coordination transmissions earlier than before. That Wolfpack positioning is disrupted before attacks develop. That convoy survival rates have improved dramatically. They do not understand why. Cannot identify the specific technical change. only know that something has shifted in British detection capability. Between May 1943 and May 1944, horizontal antenna configuration contributes to detection and destruction of 78 U-boats. Estimated merchant ships saved, 340 vessels. Estimated lives saved, 27,000 sailors, all because one radio operator inverted an antenna wire. Webb serves aboard HMS Starling under Captain Walker until May 1945. Walker's group sinks 25 U-boats during this period. Webb's detection capability contributes to 18 of those kills. He is promoted back to third class in December 1943, to second class in June 1944, to first class in February 1945. The war ends. Webb remains in naval service until 1957, retires as Chief Petty Officer, returns to Cornwall, works civilian maritime radio until 1972, marries, 3 children, 7 grandchildren, dies January 1989, age 70. His obituary in the Western Morning News mentions 27 years naval service, mentions participation in Atlantic convoy operations, makes no mention of unauthorized antenna modifications, makes no mention of court-martial, makes no mention of the 8 minutes that disrupted a wolf pack and saved 41 ships. Sometimes the most important innovations are measured not in medals or recognition, but in 3,000 men who walked down gangways in Halifax Harbor on April 2, 1943, who never knew their survival depended on a radio operator who understood that rules serve people, not the other way around, who never knew about the horizontal wire that should not have existed, who lived because Marcus Webb calculated that 8 minutes of advance warning was worth his career, and because Lieutenant Commander Richard Hayes understood that some violations of procedure serve higher principles than obedience. The mathematics were always clear. 43% detection range increase, 8 minutes earlier warning, 4 nautical miles of tactical advantage. The difference between drowning and survival. Sometimes saving lives requires breaking rules. Sometimes the inverted wire is the right answer.